When I walked into Parliament for the first time, marble swallowing my footsteps and cameras strobing along the corridor, I believed conviction would be enough. I'm Elena Vargas, 30, uncompromising, elected on a promise to pull rot out. By the roots. My father used to say truth doesn't bend even when men do. I wore that sentence like armor, light and shining, and I mistook its brightness for weight. They called me a rising star, a headline with good teeth. Hands gripped. Mine, congratulating, measuring. Behind the smiles I heard the grind of old gears, the machine testing a new bolt. Then I met Marcus Hall, silver hair, patient eyes, a reputation for never being where the damage landed. Vargas, he said without offering a hand, you've been assigned to my committee. It felt like a door closing with a soft click. His committee ran on opaque procedures and necessary compromises. My campaign had run on sunlight. In our first session he spoke in clauses that folded back on themselves while I barreled forward with verbs. Each time I pressed for plain language and public audits, he countered with practical timelines and stakeholder sensitivity. Laughter moved around the table. I kept my notes sharper. Afterward I sat on the steps outside the chamber, heart running ahead of me. I didn't hate Marcus, not yet. I hated the calm certainty with which he treated the rules like weather. You don't change it, you dress for it. I decided I'd rather be soaked than carry an umbrella someone else handed me. So I challenged him. In meetings I asked who drafted the clauses no one could trace. In hearings I read aloud the footnotes everyone skipped. Marcus listened like a chess player tolerating a prodigy who hadn't learned to lose. Once he murmured, "The building is older than your courage." I smiled back. "My courage is newer than your fear." That night I couldn't sleep. I wrote on a yellow legal pad, "Do not blink. If they stare, stare longer." It wasn't strategy so much as a vow. It steadied my hands. Looking back, I can see the stage lights already warming, the trapdoors already set. But beginnings feel clean even when the floor is dusted with old footprints. I believed service could outshout survival. I walked into the storm as if it were a hallway with good lighting, and I told myself that if lightning struck, at least everyone would see who did the striking, and what it hit when it landed. Asterisk, the next round happened where microphones don't. Well, I'd just torn into an infrastructure bill padded with consultancy services that looked like blank checks when Marcus caught me in a half-lit hallway. Tie loose, jacket open, he spoke like a man discussing lunch. "You swing hard," he said, "hard and often. I swing at rot. If it squeals, that's on it. You'll make enemies fast." I didn't come for friends. Something like amusement passed over his face. "There are rules of survival here. You test the fences. You don't charge the bull." "I grew up around bulls," I said. "You walk through, or you spend a life building prettier fences. Until you're gored. Then I'll bleed where everyone can see." He stepped closer. His voice softened. "You think the press saves you? They sell you by noon and wrap fish in you by morning. Then I'll keep talking until the fish learn ethics." He almost smiled and then chose not to. "Consider this a warning, Vargas. Fresh meat draws knives. I've carried scars. They're maps of where I kept going." After that, he was everywhere, briefings I hadn't been invited to, elevators that paused with his finger on hold. In public, he tossed me questions designed to let me shine. In the next breath, he reframed the issue so that my shine looked naive. It wasn't mentorship. It was measurement. I started doing small paranoid things and calling them habits. New passwords twice a week, printouts carried on my person, a cheap recorder in my bag. Twice my office door was closed when I had left it open. Once a folder leaned a fraction differently. Maybe I imagined it, or maybe idealism learns self-defense by counting chairs. Late one night, the elevator doors slid apart. Marcus stood alone. "Going up?" he asked. "I'm already up." "There's always higher. Where the honest ones go to die." "To adapt," he said. "At what point does adaptation become surrender?" When you keep the mission and change the method. He studied my face. Purity burns out. Then let me burn, I said, and stepped off before the doors closed like a verdict. Back at my desk, I wrote another vow on the pad. If they call it reckless to tell the truth quickly, call their delay what it is, permission. I underlined until the ink threatened to break the paper. Survival had rules. So did courage. I intended to learn both without mistaking one for the other. Asterisk, the rumor arrived like smoke under a door thin, sour, hard to pin down. A staffer brushed past me at a vote and whispered, shame about her donors. By noon, a journalist cornered. Me on the steps, microphone angled like a blade. Miss Vargas, do you deny taking dark money from undisclosed sources? I denied it, of course. The truth was simple. My filings were clean enough to eat off. But the lie was better designed than the truth, plausible, sticky, and timed to bruise. Headlines don't wait for facts, they wait for heat. Mine provided plenty. In my office, screens bloomed with the story. Anonymous sources, blurry scans of newly discovered receipts. Words like allegedly and reportedly laid a rug of doubt. Under my name, my staff tried to keep pace, but a rumor accelerates in corners where facts have to pass a committee vote. I accused Marcus in my head because he fit the outline. I could see him leaning back, admiring the efficiency of it. That night I went through every line of my campaign accounts until the numbers blurred. Clean. Cleaner than most of the chamber, and it didn't matter. So I started a wall. Clippings, names, arrows. Each dotted line circled back to the same. Conclusion. I didn't want to say out loud. Someone wanted me ruined fast enough to be instructive. Make an example of the crusader, and others will learn to sit down. I pinned my own photograph at the center, like evidence. Idealism. Premeditated. At 2 in the morning, I stood outside Marcus's office with my fist half raised. His light was off. I imagined him on the other side, patient as a cat. I lowered my hand. I wouldn't ask a fox to change its teeth. I spoke instead to the dark. If it's you, Holly, I'll find the wire, and when I pull it, I won't stop at the wallpaper. The next day he leaned toward me in committee. Rough night? He murmured, you're playing with fire. I said, fire cooks dinner, he said mildly, or burns the house. My jaw locked, breath came hot. Every laugh from the other end of the table sounded like a bet placed against me. I stapled the rumor to my wall and drew a thick red line to a name I'd written larger than the others. Holly. I told myself I was chasing truth. Beneath that I was chasing someone to blame. Beneath that I was chasing permission to fight without. Restraint. Panic pretends to be purpose. Anger dresses as clarity. I wore both and called them resolve. But even then, some part of me knew the hand behind the curtain didn't match Marcus's. The web was too wide for one spider. The silk felt official. I needed proof before smoke hardened into biography. Asterisk, the building empties at midnight. Vacuums. Light puddles on linoleum. My office is a map of red thread and coffee rings when 2 polite knocks split the quiet. I don't answer. The door opens anyway. Marcus steps in, rain in his hair, tie loose. If you've come to gloat, keep it brief. I say, I didn't start it, he answers. And if you stop performing for 1 minute, I can prove it. He lays a memo on my desk. Office of the Party Leader. Subject. Communications, Strategy, Emergent, Threat, Containment. My name appears twice. Dark money is listed as an axis of vulnerability. The plan. Seed-friendly outlets, activate paid accounts, let innuendo congeal into narrative. Where? Did you get this? Insurance, he says. They use you to measure me. If you burn, I failed to keep order. If you live, I'm a liability. Then we expose them. We scaffold, he corrects. Truth needs structured prosecutors. Timelines, documents that reinforce each other so no one office can swallow them. I searched his face and found fatigue, not the usual smirk. Why help me? Because 10 years ago I tried to do it alone and they ate the evidence and my will. I won't repeat the mistake. He points at my wall. Right pattern, wrong. Center, you drew me as the spider. I'm a fly that learned to look still. I hate that the memo rings true. I hate the relief, too. Hatred is simpler when it stays in one direction. Fine, I say. Temporary alliance, you betray me, and I burn you with them. If I betray you, he says, you won't have to. We worked an hour, unraveling shell companies and fake charities that invoice the air. The roots braid back to the same office that stamped the memo now warming under my palm. He named the trapdoors. I brought speed. Dot at the door. He offers parting advice like a reluctant mentor. Lock the laptop. Switch pens between home and office. Buy a new phone tomorrow. Paranoid is just prepared with receipts. When he's gone, the room feels smaller, cleaner. Alliance is heavier than hatred. I take a red thread and tie his name to mine. Not surrender a root. Then I print the memo twice and store one where even I will forget it until I need it. Truth, it turns out, isn't a torch. It's scaffolding, built quiet at night so the morning has something to stand on. Before dawn, I scanned the memo again and imagined the meeting where my name had been spoken like a problem set to music. They hadn't accused me because I was dirty. They had accused me because I was clean and loud. That was the lesson written between the lines. Virtue makes the best effigy. I filed the lesson under fuel. Asterisk. What we found didn't fit in folders. It sprawled. Money laundered through charities with no patience. Invoices for strategic listening. Consultancies staffed by ghosts. Payments bounced across borders like flat stones. 6 hops, then back into campaigns wearing clean shoes. At the center, the party leader smiling over ribbon cuttings. A man who never spilled soup on his tie in public. We smothered the floor in paper until the carpet disappeared. Marcus watched from the window, cigarette unlit between his fingers because smoking was banned even when the building was burning. You wanted corruption? He asked. Here it is. Big enough to make you the villain for pointing at it. Big enough to make them choke, I said. He shook his head. This isn't a scandal. It's architecture. You don't pull one beam. The roof is designed to fall on you. Then let it fall, I answered, and let the neighborhood watch. His restraint cracked. I did this once, he said quietly. I handed a folder to an ethics chair. Next day, my staff was reassigned, my wife's treatment reviewed, and the folder was air. The anger in his voice wasn't at me. It was at gravity. You don't charge a fortress across an open field. Maybe not, I said, but I didn't run for a seat to sit. He looked at me for a long time, and I saw the younger man. He'd buried under 10,000 nods. Empathy is dangerous in politics. It loosens the armor that lets you walk through knives. I felt it anyway. I'm calling a press conference, I said. If you do, you drag me with you, he warned. Then, come, I'll lose what I have left. You already lost it, I said, softer than I meant to. We worked through the night timelines, backups a thumb drive tucked into the hem of my jacket. My staff begged delay. Delay is a cousin to permission. I had given enough to the family. Already. At sunrise, I watched the city warm up and tried not to think of the fall. Marcus sat with his hands folded, like he was praying for a God he didn't believe in to notice us this once. Neither of us spoke. The quiet felt like the breath before a dive. Too late to climb down, too early to know if there's water. The only way down was through. I squared my shoulders and set the time. Asterisk, the city woke up mean. Rain stitched the streets. My phone vibrated itself across the desk. I arrived early to a room arranged for a national confession. Rows of chairs, cameras, like mechanical birds, a glass of water sweating under lights. Marcus was supposed to meet me at the side door with final documents, the ledger that tied the charity with no patience to men with very full pockets. He didn't come dot at 8:27. An unknown number. Ms. Vargas, a smooth voice, said, Mr. Hale. Won't be joining you. Where is he? In a meeting that precludes his attendance. A pause sharpened into a smile I could hear. You should cancel. There are discrepancies in your personal filings that would be unfortunate to discuss publicly. My filings are clean. Not the ones we're looking at. The line went dead. I called Marcus. Voicemail. I texted. A gray bubble pulsed and vanished. Deals were being written in a room I couldn't enter. My silence the price of someone else's peace. Panic rose like heat. I gripped a radiator until the metal answered back. Mike Combs' director asked if we were still doing this. I heard my father. Truth doesn't bend, I said. We're doing it. At 8:59, a man in a navy suit told the room manager the event was postponed for security. Microphones flickered. Off, on. I walked to the podium alone. Light erased the edges of the page in my hand. Good morning, I said. I promised transparency. I'm here to pay up. I began with names. A guard shifted. A producer sliced a finger across his throat. Cut. My mic died. Silence fell with bureaucratic precision. For a heartbeat, I felt the floor drop. History is full of women edited out with a switch dot, so I raised my voice. If you won't broadcast me, I'll broadcast myself. I shouted the rest. Accounts, dates, signatures. Journalists surged with phones held high. Security stepped closer. I braced my hands on the podium the way you brace a door. Somewhere behind me, a door clicked. I didn't turn. If it was Marcus, let the only apology be paper. Betrayal didn't come with thunder. It came with a missing man and a working silence. I kept talking anyway, carving a hole in it big enough for the truth to climb through. When I finished the last sentence, my throat was raw and the room was different. Not safe or never that, but awake. You can feel it when truth changes from rumor to object. It gains weight. The guards held their distance because the moment was heavier than their orders, and even orders dislike being seen carrying a muzzle in public. Asterisk flashes cracked like gunfire as I lifted each page. Here are the transfers. Here are the shell companies. Here are the signatures. Security told me to conclude. I said I would when the people who put me here knew what had been stolen from them. My microphone stayed dead. My voice did not. I shouted until my throat scraped. Reporters leaned in, recording raw sound and sweat instead of clean audio. Staffers looked at their shoes like the floor had become newsprint. They didn't want to. Crease. The officers hesitated, measuring optics the way we measure laws. Somewhere a producer mouthed we're leave, though. No sound traveled from me to the nation only from phones. Angles, the human network that beats sensors by being made of lungs and hands. Transparency is not a threat, I yelled. Silence is. Phones filmed. Pens flew. A chant rose from the back, one voice, then three, then a row. Let her speak. Power hates rhythm when it doesn't set the beat. The room changed shape. Fear moved to faces unused to wearing it. I recognized it because I had worn it all week and learned its weight. I held up the last page, ink smudged with the proof that hands, not algorithms, not systems, hands had signed thefts into being. This is not an ending, I said hoarse. It's a beginning. The cover is gone. Start reading. The phrase wasn't scripted. It arrived the way courage sometimes does, late, but loud enough to be useful. The chamber became weather. Reporters surged. Lawyers made calls. Aide camps performed the calculus of abandonment. How much loyalty costs when invoices are evidence? Somewhere someone flipped from loyalist to witness. You can feel the hinge when it turns. It clicks in the air like a small gun you don't see. When I stepped away, my legs shook. The documents vanished into cameras and notebooks. I understood. Something clean and terrifying. I wasn't speaking to survive a job. I was speaking because there was nothing left in me that could accept a quieter outcome. That's the dangerous kind of truth, the kind that keeps talking after the mic goes dead. That names its own echo and dares the room to pretend it's silence. Outside, the rain had stopped. The street smelled like metal and beginning asterisk. The next days stretched thin as wire. Investigations opened like storm clouds, ethics, finance, fraud. Reporters camped outside my office. My staff slept in shifts. Threats arrived with their usual cliches. So did small mercies. A cab driver refused my fare. A nurse pressed a string bracelet into my palm and said, "For your father. He raised you right." A child's note said, "Brave as keeping your voice." I taped it to the lamp so the light would pass through it. The party leader went on television with a powdered smile and called it a misunderstanding, a clerical complexity, a teachable moment for a young woman who didn't yet grasp governance. Then a procurement officer flipped. Then a treasurer resigned. Then a charity shuttered before dawn, and a trunk full of hard drives left town. The machine shed parts to save itself. I kept speaking, not louder, now steadier. Steadiness convinces, Marcus. Found me 3 days later in a pocket park where I walked rectangles to keep my lungs honest. He looked smaller without his tie, older without his posture. "I failed," he said, no preface. I was in the room when they bought my silence. I told myself I could aim the explosion. Truth is simpler. I was afraid. He held out a drive. The off-book ledger. It won't absolve me. It will finish them. I let him hold it longer than necessary, measuring the cost of taking it. "This doesn't make us even," I said. "It doesn't try to," he answered. "It makes you dangerous." I took the drive. That night, investigators matched its lines to shuttered accounts. By morning, prosecutors had calendars. By afternoon, calls arrived inviting me to switch parties, each wrapped in promises with invisible strings. I deleted them all. I wrote new rules for myself. No meetings without a recorder. Publish, then protect. 3 copies office, home, and a place I won't remember until I need it. Learn interns' names and keep them off lists. Call my mother on Sundays. Sleep when the walls start to move. Keep a spare pair of shoes under the desk and a packed bag by the door. At dawn, on that first Sunday, I left the bracelet on my father's grave and told him the truth didn't bend, even when men did, and that I had paid for saying so, but I was unbroken. The headlines will change, the faces at podiums too. The machine will learn new tricks. My job isn't to be saved by daylight. It's to keep the seam open so others can push through. I'm Elena Vargas. I'm not a miracle. I'm a mouth that didn't close when the mic went dead. I'll keep speaking until silence goes out of fashion.